So what's the best Beatles album? I'm going to tell you why it's probably not the one you're thinking.
Tiffany Coles.
Greetings YouTube family, Oreo Ingram here. Huge Beatles fan and filmmaker. And today I'm going to give you the top five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Beatles albums of all time. The top 5 albums from the greatest band, the greatest musicians, the greatest artists in the history of music. And with that being said, here we go. Number 5. It was close between this album and Let It Be, but I had to give the number 5 slot to Rubber Soul. It is a classic, iconic album. I only wish that it would have had the songs Day Tripper. I really wish it would have had Day Tripper on there. I'm gonna tell you how iconic and influential Rubber Soul was, but I'm gonna do you one better. I'm gonna have a historian. I'm gonna read you a quote directly from a historian about how Rubber Soul was just so awesome. Rubber Soul was highly influential on the Beatles' peers, leading to a widespread focus away from singles and onto creating albums of consistently high-quality songs. It has been recognized by music critics as an album that opened up the possibilities of pop music in terms of lyrical and musical scope, and as a key work in the creation of styles such as psychedelic and progressive rock, end quote. Enough said. Number 4. A lot of people are going to kill me for this, but Revolver. Now don't get me wrong, Revolver is one of the greatest albums of all time. In fact, every album on this list is arguably the 5 greatest albums ever made by anybody ever anywhere. Revolver was just so iconic, and it really opened artists' mind up to making music that's so out there. Revolver is an undeniable classic. I just think about 3/4 of the way into the album, it kind of loses its luster a little bit. Not until Gotta Get You Into My Life and then Ending When Tomorrow Never Knows. Then the album really, it picks back up the energy, and it picks back up the profoundness. And just right before For No One, in that gap, it kind of stalls. I really wish it would have had Rain, and it would have had Paperback Writer. Those should have been on the album, man. And had it had those 2 singles, it probably would be greater than 3, 2, and 1 on my list, and it would have been the greatest album of all time. Eleanor Rigby, in my opinion, is probably Paul McCartney's greatest song, other than Let It Be, and probably the greatest song of all time, Eleanor Rigby. It's just a work of beautiful art. And then you have, of course, Tomorrow Never Knows. You have Taxman on there. You have If I'm Only Sleeping, She Said, She Said. Just great freaking music, man. I didn't even mention Here, There, Everywhere. So I really wish I could put Revolver 1, 2, or 3. But man, their albums are so good. They have so many great albums that it's just hard to do. So Revolver, 4. It hurts me to say that too, but it is what it is. Number 3, the 3rd greatest Beatle album of all time, Abbey Road. It's a classic, iconic album. I just think, like, the first half of the medley on the second album, after Here Comes the Sun, on the second side, it kind of loses its steam a little bit. That's why I couldn't put it 2 or 1. But man, Abbey Road is it's just quality, just beautiful music, and it has, in my opinion, John Lennon, either his second or his first greatest song of all time. The song that doesn't really get enough credit is probably being not only the best John Lennon song, but probably the best Beatles song of all time. It's I Want You, She's So Heavy. That song is just, it even influenced heavy metal. Now, for all the people that think it didn't, you're crazy. It did. I Want You, She's So Heavy. It's just such a gem, and it's just such a profound song. Of course, you have Here Comes the Sun. It's a song, I don't care. I'm a grown, swole black dude. I don't care. Here Comes the Sun moved me to tears. I'll admit it. I don't give a damn. It has Come Together, of course, a classic, iconic song. It has Maxwell's Silver Hammer. It has Octopus's Garden. I mean, I can go on and on and on. She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. It has really great Paul McCartney tunes as well. Oh, Darling. I mean, I can go on and on and on why Abbey Road is just so iconic. And I just can't wait to go to London next year, Lord willing, to do the Beatles Abbey Road walk. So, number 3, Abbey Road. Now, I was up all night tossing and turning between what I would choose between 2 and number 1 of the greatest Beatles albums of all time. But it pains me to do this because number 2 is actually my favorite Beatles album. I think number 1 is sometimes my favorite Beatles album, but number 2 greatest Beatles album of all time, the most influential album of all time, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And it breaks my heart to put that at number 2, but because it was such an influential album. There is no more influential album than Sgt. Pepper's Heart Club Band. It influenced all albums, all bands, all artists, whatever, after it in some form or another. There's no debate. It is the most influential album of all time, and it's not even close. Of any genre, I don't care of any genre, it is the most influential. There's no debate. Had the album included Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, and possibly All You Need Is Love, though All You Need Is Love I don't think it was recorded during the Sgt. Pepper sessions, but maybe it could have made the album. But in a hypothetical world, if all those 3 tracks were on that album, hands down, Sgt. Pepper would be the greatest album ever made. There would be no argument. It's not even close. It would be beyond perfect. It would just be so beautiful. But it's already beautiful the way it is. She's Leaving Home, a song that moves me to tears. I remember the first time I heard it, it just moves me to tears. I never heard anything like it. It was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever heard in my life. It scares you in a profound and deep way. Like A Day in the Life. Like A Day in the Life, it's crazy, especially the ending. Like you think it's over, but then 30-second in, a voice pops up. Never could be any other way. Oh, never could be any other way. And it just freaks you out, and it's so creative, and it's crazy. And I didn't even mention arguably the greatest track on the album, and arguably George Harrison's most underrated, but not only his most underrated, probably his first or second greatest song he's ever made, and one of the top 10 greatest Beatles songs of all time that gets dumped on. This song gets dumped on, and I hate that. Within You, Without You. It is so profound. It is so dope. It blows my mind that people don't see the greatness in that song, in that album. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, there will never be another album like it. It is classic and iconic. It is the most influential album ever made, and it breaks my heart that it's not number 1. So that leads us to number 1, the greatest Beatle album of all time. And of course, it's the White Album. It's the Beatles' self-titled 1968 album, The White Album. It is the most eclectic, the most daunting, the most profound album, in my opinion, of all time. It is so deep, but subtly deep. It is scary. It is haunting. It gives you a feel. I was born in 1990. Granted, I wasn't born in the 60s, but my parents lived throughout the 60s, and I can only get their account of how just scary and profound and just insightful and earth-changing it was. But that album encapsulates the atmosphere in the 60s. And not only that, like, you listen to it today, 51 years later, and oh my God, it's still scary, it's still daunting, it still freaks you out. And it ends so beautifully with Good Night. And it starts so amazing with Back in the USSR. And then it goes into arguably the most beautiful song I think I've ever heard in my life, Dear Prudence. And then you have Long, Long, Long. And then you have a social critique, allegory, like painting like with piggies. And then you have Mother Nature's Son, a song that's so delicate and beautiful and underrated. And a song that could be applied to illegal aliens today, that in what they're going through unjustly. That song can be applied to their plight and their struggle. And then you have Blackbird, which I guess for a black dude, an African American dude like me, like Blackbird was written by Paul McCartney to tell black people in the USA who were fighting for civil rights in the 60s to keep your head up, to keep fighting. And for this guy from Liverpool, from England, to write that song, this group to do a song like that, it just speaks volumes of what the Beatles are and just how great their music is and how transcendent their music is beyond color lines and beyond cultural anything. And this is a flawed masterpiece, but I want to stress the term masterpiece. It has 30 tracks, and I mean, some tracks you may not like. Personally, I don't like Julia. I love the message of Julia, and it's, you know, it's for his mother, and I love that, and I think it's so beautiful and touching. But that's the great thing about the album. It has 30 tracks, which is so much more than any other Beatles album. So you get much more of the Beatles, but you also get each and every one of the Beatles' style. It's more pronounced in this album than any other Beatles album. It's much more, in my opinion, nuanced than any other Beatles album. Even though it's very fragmented, it's very nuanced. And it's just so, there's no album on earth like the White Album. It is the greatest album ever made. It is beautiful, it is lovely, it is iconic, and it is why the Beatles are the greatest band in the history of music. And not only that, they're the greatest artists in the history of music. Well guys, that's my top 5 Beatles albums, and I'll recap: Rubber Soul at 5, Revolver 4, Abbey Road 3, Sgt. Pepper's 2, and number 1, the White Album. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Oreo Ingram. Love you guys. We make these videos to entertain you guys, to bring some joy into your world, and to also make films in the future that also bring joy and entertainment into the world. So feel free to subscribe if you like this video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. With that being said, guys, peace and love, and I'm out.